Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today. My name is John Robertson. I'm an amateur landscape and wildlife photographer. For those of you returning to the channel, thanks for coming back, taking a look at another video. As usual, please like and comment below. For those of you new to the channel, take a look at some of the content and give a consideration to subscribe. I've got a great video today. It's unique from what I've done in the past. I'm out with a friend of mine, Wesley Homoya, who's an ornithologist and leads bird tours globally. And we're out taking a hike, discussing birds, spring migration, tips for photographers of how to photograph birds and awareness of the migration patterns of the birds, as well as some environmental challenges that the birds face, and call to action for us photographers and everybody in general for what we could do to help out and give back a little bit to our environment and our feathered friends. So please join along and comment below if you'd like to see more of this type of content or any questions you have. And again, thanks for joining. So welcome back. We're out here at one of the city parks. It's Fall Creek Trail. It's a nice birding area. Typically, we're going to take a hike along it and see what we can find as far as bird life, maybe even try to find some mushrooms out here today. So I've got a birding expert with me today, Wes Homoya. Wes, can you give us an introduction, who you are, what you do?
Who am I? Let's see here. My name is Wes Homoya. Happy to be joining you guys today. Nature lover, born and bred Hoosier, ornithologist, philanthropist, advocate.
Advocate, that's a good word.
Cider drinker. So I'm here to tell you about birds, hopefully encourage you and inspire you to watch and listen and learn and enjoy and ultimately join local organizations in your community that are working to preserve the habitats and the wildlife that we share this planet with. I lead birding tours around the world for a company called Natural Selections Tours, and I'm also an avian biologist. I do various kinds of bird survey work around the country for a environmental firm. So that's my gig.
Your gig,
and
good.
Ash and Elm Cider, my brother's business, and I do some events.
Haven't been there
I'm
yet.
the hype guy.
I read great things.
One of the hype guys for
You're the
Ash.
marketing guy.
That's right.
And you do
Been
some
doing it ever
photography, though.
Do some photography.
Only when you see something
It's
unique.
if it's something unique, I try to get like what's called a record shot of it, which just means you can
An
tell
ID
what
shot,
it is,
an
an
ID
ID shot, nothing like to frame or whatever. And then I do carry a camera that's good enough to get good pictures of things that are in decent lighting and not moving around a whole lot.
Okay.
If it's moving, sometimes I'll take a video, but otherwise I need, I don't have the setup quite to get really good photos of stuff that's in bad light or birds in flight.
Yeah, I've noticed not
I haven't
all
messed with
birders
that.
are photographers and not all photographers are birders.
There's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
There's a whole spectrum.
Right.
You can be a strict birder that doesn't carry a camera. I've seen birders that don't even carry binoculars. They just carry a camera. And they'll basically bird with their camera, and that's fine too. Something for everybody. It takes all kinds.
I got to think there's even a population of blind birders, just because of the song.
And you're absolutely right, and that's a very good point. We tend to, as a society, yellow-throated warblers singing above us. By the way,
I was curious.
we tend, and it's human nature to sort of not think about our. I don't want to say ableist tendencies, but just, we can forget about some folks that don't have all the faculties that we have. So, the blind community, the deaf community, people that aren't able to walk or this, that, and the other, mental health issues, we need to be thinking about ways that we can bring all of our community into this hobby and into this appreciation It is getting better. There's an organization called Birdability that's working on that right now, doing a lot of cool work with that. And just in a Zoom call meeting I had today, we were talking about that for the Indiana Dunes Birding Festival, ways that we can have new events where, you know, somebody doesn't need to be able to hike to go see the birds.
Right.
We can just get them to a spot and show them the birds there. Or, you know, like you say, maybe if it's, we can say to a blind community, we'd love to have you, and we'll just talk about all the birds we're hearing, or, you know, vice versa with the deaf community. So, lots to think about, and yeah, we definitely want, we want to
You're all inclusive.
incorporate and
Everybody.
be inclusive with, bring everyone into the flock, right? So,
All right, well, find me some more birds.
more birds? Okay, let's do it. We're gonna be singing all day.
So it's about 1 o'clock. Pretty warm today too.
Yeah, yeah.
Mid 60,
Well,
close to
for the
60
day.
now for the day it is.
Yeah,
So when you're going out for yourself
yeah,
and your big day, your marathon birding,
right.
what time are you out there?
Well, so I'd like to start even before first light, before dawn, because I want to get the owls in that twilight period between total darkness and, you know, between first light and true sunrise. You can get, that's called the twilight or crepuscular period, if you
Yep.
want to get real
Yeah.
fancy schmancy and ecological terms here.
I know that from my astro photography studies.
There you
yeah.
go, exactly. And gloaming, right, for the photographers,
gloaming.
right? You
I haven't
heard
heard
that term,
gloaming.
gloaming? So that's the period right after first light and before the sun really gets up above the
Okay.
horizon, and so you get some of those like blues and
Blue,
oranges
that's
and
blue
stuff.
hour.
Yeah, there you go, exactly.
All right.
So versus the golden hour, right? So. Right, so owls, and then in that twilight period, you can get some stuff like maybe some night jars, like whippoorwill, or
Okay.
depending on where you're at, Chuckwill's widow or something like that, woodcocks. So there's some things that are really like that period, nighthawks. And then you also are getting stuff that's leaving its roost and going somewhere to go forage. And so you can get some really good flyover stuff in that first hour, basically, of light. So you can get herons and shorebirds and waterfowl moving from a resting place to a foraging area, and so you can get some good flyover
I was
stuff.
just looking over your shoulder at the downy.
See or hear the rest of the day. Oh, perfect. Oh, I planned it that way.
Yeah.
So so that first hour can be really crucial to your birdathon or your count day. And then that next couple hours right after dawn is when you got peak song. So that's when you can hear the most species in a given day. And then things really start to slow down by mid-morning usually. And then it's usually just the things that are actively staying there or are going to breed there or have a territory there. And they'll keep going throughout most of the morning. And then you really kind of hit the doldrums by around lunchtime, and for the next couple hours. At that point, you're having lunch or having a break, or you're going to, if you're going to move somewhere, you're going to move somewhere where the birds are just out in the open. You can just see them, and you're not so worried about hearing them or seeing them fly by. So in that case, you're looking for like ducks on a pond or something like
Gotcha.
that, where they're just sitting out there.
Gotcha.
And then late afternoon, early evening, then you get a little bit of what you had in the morning. You get a little bit more of a peak of activity, things trying to get their last bit of sustenance before the end of the day, before they go to rest. And then you get into the night, you get some dusk stuff, and then the owls again, of course, when it gets dark again. That sort of thing. So that's sort of like...
That's a chronology of a day.
That's the chronology of the day. So that's the birdathon schedule. We got a perfect day. Dialed up a good one.
So when you're out birding, suppose you're just like a casual hike like this with a couple amateur hour here. Is there birds that still excite you to see, or
Oh yeah.
like you see a yellow warbler? To you, it's you've seen a few thousand of them, right? Millions maybe. For newbies, it's still
it's
unique.
I mean, it's birding is sort of a constant. You always have an opportunity to see something that you haven't seen before if you're open to it. Now, if all you're trying to do is get that next lifer, that next bird species that you haven't seen before, and you want to see it once so you can tick it off, if that's all you're looking for is your next lifer, then yeah, you're gonna get majorly frustrated, and it's gonna be you know, you're not gonna be getting nearly as much out of it as you could. But for, you know, what I hope most birders are learning is, yeah, I mean, there's always a new behavior you can see. There's a new sound you can hear, a new interaction between species that you haven't seen before. So that's the beauty of nature, is there's always something new there if you're looking for it. But yeah, I mean, it's just human nature for I think many birders to have sort of a novelty-seeking behavior. I very much have that. I want to see all the things that the world has to offer and all these new things, but you know, you can't always travel or
So
whatever.
when you see a warbler,
So when I see a yellow rope warbler, like, I'm still happy about it. I'm still excited to see it. It's not maybe quite the same as seeing a species I haven't seen before in
but will you
South
stop
America
and
or
observe
something.
it for
But
a
yeah,
while?
I still want to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, show it some respect, right? Like,
Well, see,
it's still cool. Just because you've seen it a bunch of times before doesn't mean it's any less cool. So, like, you know.
You know, and being a person that likes the outdoors, seeing them to me is cool.
Yeah.
I still love seeing.
Yeah.
Trying to photograph them's a pain in the ass.
Oh, well, yeah, that adds a whole nother
At least at my skill
layer
level, right?
element for sure. If you're a photographer, yeah, well,
I
that's
mean, it's fleeting moments.
you can
there.
always get a new type of photograph
Right.
of anything, right? So,
But to get the unique ones,
yeah,
even of the same bird,
Yeah.
right? How many warblers are posted on Instagram today?
sure.
How many cool ones? There's a lot less. But I mean, it's challenging with
Yep.
the leaves coming out,
Yep.
even to photograph them right now.
Right.
You know that.
Right.
Cool.
So that's why you get the bazooka cameras where you can just get.
Yeah, but you
One of
got
them's gonna be
you
good.
got to get him in the center there still.
Peter, tufted titmouse, calling to the left there.
Yeah, they're pretty loud for such a little puffy bird, aren't they?
Titmice? Yeah, they are. To my estimation, the bird that packs the most, you know, punch per pound, although they're less than a pound.
Per feather.
Per feather is Carolina wren.
Oh yeah.
They're just, and the wrens in general, really, house wren, winter wren, you know, small, spunky little birds with lots of energy and charisma and volume, and lots of variety too. You know, like, you can hear a wren singing and calling, and you'll hear something different almost every time you hear them. So they're great birds. But we got a little group of blue jays coming up here on the left. Little posse.
Is that what it's called? Blue jay posse? Yeah. Or did you just make that up?
I don't know what the bird flock term
Wait a
is
minute.
for
Wait a
jays.
minute. You don't know what that is?
Of jays? Do you?
No.
No, I don't either.
But
well, there's so many of them. I mean, I know a lot of them. There's some, you know. Now they're in the corvid family, which is the same as the crows and ravens. And crows, of course, we all know a group of crows is a murder.
That's a.
So jays would maybe be something a little bit less. I don't know. They're a little bit smaller.
Or more colorful.
An assault of jays. I'm not sure
An
what
assault.
the jays are. But
See, when you said posse,
yeah, posse. I mean,
I went for it.
I like alliteration though. Maybe it should be like a jubilation of jays, a jamboree of jays.
See, then it'd be easier for us amateurs to understand.
The best one I've heard of is an exultation of larks. I like that one. An exultation.
Do you have that on a test at some point in your?
I probably, when I was a bird TA at Purdue, I probably put that on there once. Would be my guess. But it's cool to watch blue jays at this time of year, early spring, because they are diurnal migrants. They migrate during the day, and they're not long distance migrants like some of the stuff, like neotropical things like warblers and thrushes coming from Central South America and Caribbean and up here. They're short distance migrants, so they're coming from like southeastern U.S. to northeastern U.S. more or less. But you can see them migrating during the day. You can get, you can see dozens or sometimes even hundreds of jays passing by a certain area
Right.
in a flock, usually pretty low, going in one direction and everything. You can tell it's a visible migration, or in the birder parlance, vismig. And you can see the jays doing that. It's pretty cool.
I think we saw that out at Mud Creek.
Nice. Yeah, I've not been down this way.
As band encroaches more into the land.
Mm-hmm.
What does, what effect does that have on our bird life and our population and the migration patterns, probably more importantly right now?
Sure. Well, it's just math, right? I mean, less habitat's going to be less wildlife, less birds. But it's not always just that simple either. There are, there in the bird and wildlife world, you got generalists and specialists, generally speaking. So you have some wildlife that's like, okay, I'm going to take the strategy of really focusing in on a certain kind of habitat or a certain kind of prey or foraging source, so that I can be the best at that compared to all these other things. And then you've got generalists, which are like, okay, I'm not going to specialize in any certain one thing because I don't want to have to be dependent on being in a very specific area or depending on my prey or foraging resource to be, abundant. So I'm going to be able to live in all certain kinds of places. I'm going to be able to eat all certain kinds of things, so on and so forth. And what we're seeing with humans kind of going across the world and sort of homogenizing the landscape, the generalists are doing quite well. So your gulls and crows and jays and some of these kinds of things, they can live about anywhere, they can eat about anything. Their populations are over the board generally increasing. And then the specialists, they really like a specific niche or whatever. In general, they're not doing as well because they're having less of that type of habitat available to them. So the net result is an overall loss in biodiversity.
What about then for, say, climate change? How's that impacting migration patterns?
So yeah, as far as climate change, the science in general, I think it can be kind of hard to grasp, and also when you're doing computer modeling to predict things that are going to be happening, thousands of years from now, whatever, even dozens of years from now, it's an inexact science, and we can use best available data to make our best predictions, and but it can be difficult to tease out, like, okay, am I really seeing the effects of this in my lifetime? But we really are, and just in a matter of years. And you ask any gardener, you ask any, these are people that are, it's apolitical. The hardiness zones of where you can grow certain plants is it's only changed just in the last several decades. So it's indisputable that, we're seeing some changes as far as, places getting warmer earlier or staying warmer later, and this, that, and the other. It's the same thing with birds. So you ask any birder whether they're any side of the political spectrum or whatever, we're seeing more southerly species showing up more and more northern latitudes. We're seeing some things returning earlier in the spring. Species ranges are changing in accordance with our understanding of climate change. So it's happening. It's changing things. With birds, one of the big concerns for these long distance migrants is they're so used to timing their migration based on day period or photo period. The days get longer, of course, in the middle of the year, in the summer. So they're still kind of on that trajectory of, okay, we need to show up in late April, mid-May or whatever. But leaf out is starting earlier, and so they're having a harder time timing it right with leaf out and insects starting to come out and all that sort of thing. So hopefully they'll be able to adapt to it quickly enough. Most species will. That's, fingers crossed, but that's sort of one of the challenges we're seeing with birds.
What about light pollution?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean,
if it's fair to call it light pollution.
It is, yeah, I think
the
that's
abundance
fair.
of lighting.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, there are dark skies initiatives. There's a big push for that. With long distance migrants, we do see that they get disoriented by areas of lots of concentrated urban lighting, and so they sort of get kind of tractor beamed into these areas, into cities where there's a lot of light pollution, and because part of their nocturnal migration system uses the stars as navigation, so they are either thinking the lights are stars, or they're thinking it's daytime before it's daytime or something like that. But in any case, they're getting down to these areas.
It's disturbing.
And then once they're in these areas, then, you know, they don't know how to navigate the urban jungle. So a lot of times what's happening is they're hitting glass, they're hitting windows. So that's one of the top couple things that humans can do to save birds right now is to get their windows treated, and push for their communities to treat their windows. So that is
treated
meaning, or like retrofitting. So like you could just reinstall brand new windows that have like UV treatment to them, but that's very expensive. Most people probably can't do that. But you have a whole range of options, and I would refer your viewers and listeners to American Bird Conservancy.
American
Bird Conservancy, which is in general one of the, I think, there's several good entities, but that's one of the best ones out there, that it's doing work on the two big anthropomorphic human-caused sources of mortality for birds, one which is the windows, the other which is outdoor cats. So the two biggest things you can do are keep your cats indoors, and with your windows, if you can either put blinds on them or mesh screens, or you can put a UV film on there, or you can put strings over them, kind of whatever you want to dangle over there, or you can just use chalk or stickers. A lot of people will use like decals and things like that, so that you have a whole array of options. There's a company called Feather Friendly that makes lots of different sticker decal patterns that you can put on there. So depending on your budget and your aesthetic, you have an array of options. But yeah, fixing your windows and pushing your communities to have a bird safe city with bird safe windows, and then keeping your cats indoors and telling your community to keep outdoor cats controlled. Those are two of the biggest things, other than just in general protecting habitat, conserving habitat. Those are the big things that you can do today to make a big difference. Using playback is the term that's used most often. I think at this point there's been some studies to see how it affects birds, and in general there's not like a big consensus on, okay, you can't do it at all, or you should, okay, you can do it all the time. Everything I hear is always sort of couched with some caveats, and so usually the way I hear it said is moderate playback is okay. Avoid using it with endangered species or sensitive species, breeding species. People say, you know, okay, if it's peak breeding season, you don't want to be doing it too much.
Don't waste its energy.
Because you don't want it to waste its energy. You don't want to bring an adult away from the nest, perhaps, and then leave the young, you know, stranded or whatever. So it's kind of a situation where the way I do it is, if I want to see a bird, or if I'm with a group that wants to see a bird, if it's something that's not super rare, I may try to play it in for, you know, play it once or twice, a couple times. If it comes in, great. If not, then move on. If it does come in, you know, have a good look and whatever, but don't keep playing for minutes on end to get the perfect shot for the photographers, right? You know, you wanna not harass the bird too much. So I did hear a white-eyed vireo a minute ago.
So we're about ready to wrap up. We found a couple morel mushrooms thanks to your binoculars that you brought that are filtered for the mushrooms themselves.
They do sell sunglasses.
So, you know, a couple things. I noticed you're wearing your favorite shirt from your boyhood times. And so tell us a little bit about your shirt and anything else you'd like to say about the local conservation efforts and environmental, let's say, advocacy in general.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so this shirt here is one of my favorite shirts. It's a Carolina parakeet print, and it reminds me of them and reminds me of why I do some of this kind of stuff. Carolina parakeets, if you've never heard of them, it's because they're extinct now. They used to be here in Indiana, right where we're standing. You probably could have seen them a couple hundred years ago, a few hundred years ago. Mostly they were in the southeastern United States, and we lost them due to a couple different reasons, but one of the big reasons was habitat loss, and they were considered agricultural pests, so a lot of them were eliminated for that reason. So we actually had a native parrot species in Indiana and in the eastern U.S., and I thought, that's such a cool thing, but we don't have that anymore. But there are other things today that are endangered or rare that we can keep from going extinct, and so that's one of the big reasons for conservation and environmental advocacy is to protect and keep these things alive. I mean, it's a pretty powerful motivator, I think, to prevent extinction. If nothing else, just when the last Carolina parakeet died in captivity, and when the last passenger pigeon died in captivity, a lot of tears were shed, and it's altruistic to want to save other things besides yourself and other species besides yourself, but in many ways, I think for our own mental health and wellness and sense of joy and happiness, I can't think of a better way to honor that and achieve that than preserving the environment and nature all around you. So, for selfish reasons too, I implore you to get out there and learn more about nature and experience nature and help to conserve nature. You'll be happier, I guarantee it. Ways to do that, besides what we've already talked about today, get involved if you have property, if you have a yard, fantastic. Plant native plants. Indiana Native Plant Society is a great resource and advocate for native plants in Indiana, so I highly suggest doing that and hooking up with them and getting involved with them and learning from them, and create a little nature oasis where you live. If you don't have a place like that, many of us don't, myself included, then you can, in your local community, at a local park or nature preserve, you can do that. Indiana DNR, Division of Nature Preserves, is also doing some amazing work in this field, so if you can support them or get involved with them, I'd recommend that. And lastly, your local land trust. So depending on where you live, here it's the Central Indiana Land Trust, or CILTI. Just yesterday I went to a property in northwestern Indiana a little bit, Niches Land Trust, another great group. Sycamore Land Trust down in Bloomington, Acres Land Trust, Fort Wayne area, Shirley Hines Land Trust, Chicago area, Dunes Land area. There's probably a couple I know there's others I'm forgetting. Well, Mud Creek Conservancy is a really mini land trust right here in northeastern Indiana that you can check out. So check out all those places. And
Northeastern Marion County.
Northeastern Marion County, yeah, thank you. So that's my spiel, and thank you so much for letting me tag along with you guys today. And to you viewers, hope you learned something and had a little fun, and I hope you get involved and get out there and see some cool birds and other nature-y things. Have a good one. Cheers.